Tape the perimeter of your bathroom floor and your toilet to avoid getting paint in unwanted areas. After taping the baseboard, it's time to prime your floor. We recommend Sticks Primer because we found it provides the best adhesion. We're using a chip brush to paint the borders first, making sure we reach all the corners. Then, we're going to go in with a dense foam roller to cover the rest of the floor. We are going to apply about 2 to 3 coats of primer before the base coat. We sand and prime the floor before stenciling because we want to make sure the paint sticks to the tiles before we start painting. Once the primer is dry, we're going to be painting our floor our base coat color. You can save yourself a step and some money and get your primer tinted the desired floor color you want at your local paint store. Otherwise, grab your paint color and apply 2 to 3 coats of your base coat color. Apply spray adhesive to the back of your tile stencil. This is a key component to avoid any bleed that might occur underneath the tile stencil. For this specific floor, we want to ignore the grout lines. We decided this style would look best with this linoleum floor because the space between the tiles is too thin. We are placing the stencil directly on the tile where the edges meet. Because we are not stenciling the grout lines, we covered the repeating registration marks with blue painter's tape. Another key factor when stenciling the perfect tile floor is all about how you load your dense foam roller. Evenly load your paint onto your roller and offload excess paint onto a paper towel. Then, with light pressure, apply paint onto the stencil. If there's too much paint on your roller and you press down way too hard, you will get some bleed. Most likely, to accomplish this project, you'll need 2 coats. Since we did not stencil the registration marks, we will align the stencil right next to the other so the corners touch. Now repeat this process on each full tile. Tile stencils are super flexible and can bend to fit tricky corners. Just roll your paint as close as you can to the edge and then go back with your professional stencil brush and pounce it where the floor meets the wall. Our tile stencils are even flexible enough to fit around a curvy toilet. You can use a roller, but we find that the best results when stenciling around a toilet are when you use a professional stencil brush. For those extra hard to reach places, this is where buying a second stencil comes in handy. Measure your partial tile and cut your stencil accordingly. Then, place your stencil and fill in those tiles. On to our final step. Once you have finished stenciling and the floor is completely dry, it's time to seal it with water-based polyurethane. It's important to use water-based polyurethane because it's non-toxic, it has a rapid dry time, and it doesn't yellow over time. We recommend 2 to 3 coats.
All right, so getting started, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna quickly sweep the floor and we're gonna sand the floor with some 220 sandpaper. I got it on a sanding block here. Then we're gonna come in and we're gonna use TSP. We're gonna clean the floor with TSP, trisodium phosphate. Okay, I've got my Wise Owl stain eliminating primer. It's got great adhesive quality. Stir it up real good before you put your coats down. I'm using a dense foam roller so I give a real smooth finish. During the priming process, if you notice that your grout is chipped in any areas, you can take a little bit of caulk, just caulk that area, fill it in, smooth it out with a finger or a little bit of a wet rag, and it's gonna make your grout look great. Then just prime over top of it and you're back on track. Okay, we let our primer dry overnight. We're ready for our base coats. We're gonna be applying 2 coats of Wise Owl 1 Hour Enamel Antique Villa. We're gonna do it in the same way that we did the primer, using the dense foam roller and a brush to cut in the edges. The floor and baseboards have been base coated, and now I'm gonna mask off the baseboards. I made a sample ahead of time using these beautiful Wise Owl colors. It's gray linen is my light color and peppercorn is my dark color. Because my tile floor has a slight light texture to it, I'm choosing to use a brush. It's going to give me a tighter edge than using a roller. So I'm using a 3/4 inch stencil brush. And when you use a stencil brush, remember, you don't want to dip it all the way in. Just get the tip of the brush into the paint like so, and then take off some, it's called pelleting the brush, and don't have too much paint on it. And that's how you load the brush. I'm gonna use a little spray adhesive on this stencil. It helps to really get tighter edges. So I'm gonna take it outside, put a few light coats on the back of the stencil, and then we'll be ready to go. Center your stencil on the tile. Okay, the stenciling is done and the floor turned out great. It's time to pull the masking tape, do a few touch-ups, and apply 3 coats of top coat to protect this beautiful floor. I'll be using Wise Owl 1 Hour Enamel Clear Satin as my top coat. It's going to dry crystal clear and be rock solid. I'm using a staining pad to apply this. It's going to leave a really smooth finish. Didn't this tile floor makeover turn out great?